Okay, here we are. We are COMP3025. It's the winter 2016 term at Georgian, week 1, lesson 1, part 1. And we're learning iOS and Swift in this class. That's what we're doing. We're here on the Mac. Again, most of you, like I kind of went over, you're using a virtual machine that's on the school computer for most cases because you don't have your own Mac. Bear with it because, again, there's going to be a little bit of slowness or whatever. I'm going to be using my Mac, and I'm going to try and mirror what you guys see on the screen. Okay, so let's talk about our syllabus a little bit. And the syllabus is up online. If I miss something or if there's something incomplete, and Rich, you'll see that it's, I stole gregariously from Rich. I just kind of took everything I can, right? Because Rich is a very organized man, and I like to use what he likes to use, right? So we're going to use this book. It's really cool. I have to give him props because honestly, you know what? I've been in last semester. We kind of spent some time together, and he gave me all kinds of really great ideas. And Rich is here today too, and he's going to be with us for pretty much most of the semester. I'm guessing, because we're working on this together. We're kind of this is new for everybody, right? So Rich is here to to kind of absorb things just like everyone else. We're going to use this really cool book in this course. iOS Programming, The Big Nerd Ranch Guide from Pearson, actually. It's a really cool book. It's a recommended book to get. It's not that expensive to actually buy the book if you're interested in getting it. But it's a really, really cool book that I'm using. These guys at The Big Nerd Ranch, they're known for iOS development. That's all they do. So if you actually look at their website, they've got the books there. So if I was going to look at The Big Nerd Ranch for a second. Not torrent. Look at that.
Yeah.
First thing that comes up is torrent, right?
Yeah, that was you.
It wasn't me, I swear. No, I'm not going to edit nothing. All right. One good thing is they have a really cool website. They write a bunch of books, and the book that I'm going to be using is this, the one for iOS, which is iOS Programming, The Big Nerd Ranch Guide.
Can we get it on torrent?
I don't know. I didn't. I don't know what you're talking about. But as professors, we can order these books. They come right from Pearson, so we get our desk copy right from there. So the great thing is they do have digital copies that you can buy, and they're not that expensive, right? So if I was going to click on Buy Now, as an example, you can see that the price is really low. Like, we're not talking about really a lot of money and stuff like that at all. And I think that, to me, if you were to buy a book for iOS and you want to follow along, because I'm going to be following pretty much chapter for chapter on this book, as well as some other materials that I have. I mean, this is a great guide for you guys. And that's all they do. So the stuff that we'll be talking about, look, someone already got it. The stuff that you'll get on this one is quite nice. Okay, so that's the book that we're going to be using. So my PowerPoints then, just along that line, come from the book. So everything I do, you're going to see a lot of the PowerPoints. All I've done is taken some of the book pieces and put them into my PowerPoints to kind of condense what I'm going to be talking about here. And we're going to be following along with the book example today and create this sample iOS app. That's what we're going to be doing right today. Okay, so I'm a part-time guy. I'm not here full-time. I also work at other places, right? But you can certainly contact me via email. You can make an appointment with me. I do have hours today, as an example, on Fridays after class. I am available for another hour or two after class. I also have availability on Thursdays after hours, so after 4 o'clock. I am available for you guys as well. And you can also make an appointment with me. We can do things like, if we need to talk or whatever, I can get together with you guys on Google Hangouts or Skype if you prefer, whatever, to solve problems or whatever. If you want to talk to me, you can always call me on my phone too. Okay, so let's take a look at this insane schedule that we got going on. It's going to look pretty insane, but don't worry. A lot of these quizzes are just 2%. I've just put them up here so you know when they're coming, right? So you've got your bonus lab today, right? That's your 2% for your bonus lab. So please, if you haven't had a chance to do that already, and you should have already been able to go up there and send up a little text file up on GitHub. Yeah.
Couldn't we just copy paste the link into the text on the page?
I'd ask you not to do that. Please get a text file. Listen to what I'm asking you to do.
I don't know how to open text on this little
That's why I'm asking you to do it. Right? I've got a method to my madness, right? Do what I'm asking you to do. Okay, go on the text file, find out where text edit is on the Mac.
Ask me to log into an Apple ID.
You shouldn't know. Really? Okay, thank you for that. That's feedback. I got to take that back and figure that out. That's weird that it shouldn't ask you that. Text Wrangler, really?
Yeah.
Text edit.
So I did it.
Would you be upset if we did it in
Text wrangler, seriously.
As long as you get a text file somehow, if you go touch and then you create the text file in terminal, I'm fine, right? You can do that. I don't have to. I don't care about the actual what editor you use to make the file, right?
As long as it gets there.
Yeah, make it in. I don't care if you make it in Visual Studio Code or brackets, right? Yeah, Sublime would work. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. Just get that stuff up there and put it up on GitHub, right? That's really your first one. Yeah.
Do I have to make a new repository, or can I just link you an old one?
Give me one that you have, but I want the link in a text file, right? That's all I want. It doesn't matter. Just all I need is access to your account. Yeah.
If I call it mobile and persuasive computing because I didn't read the word.
I'm totally fine with that. I'm not going to be hurt by the name, right? It won't hurt me in any way. Right? So I'll be cool, right? Don't worry. Okay, so that's really it. Next week we're gonna get your first assignment. It's gonna really be a simple iOS app you're gonna build, because we're building one this week, right? So you should kind of know how to build a very simple iOS app. It's worth 10% of your grade, and you'll have a couple weeks to kind of put it together, only because of time. And there's some trickiness about it, and also because you don't have access at home. Not because it's a hard thing to do, but because you can only access it on most of you on the school computer. I got to give you some extra time to come in, right? So and to be able to do that stuff, not because you need that time. All right, so if you notice the schedule of quizzes, there's 10 of them, right? So there's like a quiz, and I mean I put them on there. I could have left them out of the schedule, but really it's 2% every time, and I told you when it's going to happen. There's going to be some days we don't do a quiz, and those days are going to be obviously our midterm and our final exam, and today. So those are the 3 days you won't get a quiz, right? But you're going to probably get a quiz every other time, right? So please be prepared for that. And again, all it is if I talk about something today, we're gonna have a 5-minute quiz next week, 5 to 10 questions, multiple choice, true, false. It's going to be automatically marked, and you'll get your 2%, right? Now, because I've given you that extra 2% for GitHub, doing it today, which is kind of a simple little exercise and getting yourself familiar with the Mac. If you don't do well in a couple quizzes, it's going to balance out, right? It's still going to be okay, right? And if you look at the point spread for this course, it's actually out of 103, right? So you still have that extra 1% that I'm giving you, even on top of this, just in case there's one of the quizzes doesn't go so well for you. So even though I broadcast the course and I'm broadcasting everything, really it behooves you to come in and do your quiz. It's the beginning of class, 5 minutes, and to be here present. In order for you to learn iOS, the most successful that you can be is actually to physically be in class and do it, and especially if you're not a Mac user. If you're a Mac user, then you're very familiar with the Mac environment, and you're going to be pretty cool. But if you're not a Mac user and you're learning how to build iOS apps, it behooves you to come to class and to practice. Otherwise, what's going to end up happening is you're going to be in trouble, right? When it comes to an exam, I'm going to ask you to build something practical, and then you're going to be too slow to do it. Is that a hand that I see, or are you stretching? Stretching. Okay. Assignment 2 will be an iOS advanced UI app. And what I mean by that is more stuff, just more graphic stuff that you're going to put in your app. Some other ways of organizing. The first app that you're going to make is actually going to be like a little Mickey Mouse app, like really little, 2 seconds to make, that kind of thing. And it's just going to get your feet wet. Assignment 3 is where we get really into it, and that's after the midterm. Well, it's going to come before the midterm, but it'll be due after. And what it is you're going to make an app with multiple views. All right, so that's where it gets a little bit more intense in the second half. This course builds quick, right? So if you actually look at the book and follow along, and I highly recommend you get your hands in the book, because for you to be successful, it takes a little bit of reading ahead. Like I said, if it's a foreign system to most of you, it looks easy to put together an app, and you might say, oh yeah, I've done Android development, so then iOS development should be no problem. You'd be forgiven to think that. That's all I can tell you. It's not that easy, especially when it comes to layout. And auto layout is a bit of a pain. You're going to see that today. So please don't think it's going to be an easy thing to do to make iOS apps. It's not. You need to really focus on it, and you need the material. As much material as you can get, actually. Assignment 4, we're going to be doing our first table view app, which is a very common app, but actually very challenging to make because it requires you to do additional programming on the back end to make everything fit together. So those are your 4 assignments. Then you're going to do a project of your own. And what I'm going to be giving you is probably the ability to work with somebody else. I'll tell you right now. Again, it's just a horsepower thing. It's not because I don't want you to do your own project on your own, but only because you're just not going to have the time. And you're also going to be challenged because, again, you can only do your Mac here, right? Or in the other environments, you can't do a Mac somewhere else, right? So chances are, for most of you, so you're going to require more time. If you notice, I've broken up the project, and this is learnings that I had with Rich from last semester. I've broken out the project in 4 parts, right? So the first part would be due first, and then each part is worth 5% for a total of 20, right? So each week you're going to have to deliver something for your project with your partner, right? And that way it'll keep you on track and get you to finish the project. If you fail to deliver part 1, then you're going to move on to part 2 because I won't be, it's done. As soon as that time is done for your part 1, then we're going to be marking part 2. And then you have your final exam. And if you notice, the midterm and the final exam are only worth 10%, right? So they're not going to kill you, right? Overall, you still have about 40% in tests. That's the balance, and about 60% in assignments and stuff like that, in projects. So it's a pretty good balance. Okay, and here's your schedule. So today we're going to be talking about the simple iOS app. Next week we're going to start with the Swift language, right? It's going to be kind of a Swift primer, if you will. You're not going to be experts in Swift after you finish this course. You cannot be. It's like, I don't know, are you an expert in JavaScript? Or are you an expert in C# or Java? You know a little bit of it. You've got some orientation. And because you know these other languages, we can do kind of this primer for this language, right? Because you already know some object orientation by this point, right? You guys are 3rd year, right? So you guys should know some object orientation. You guys should know basic structures, know how to declare variables. There's going to be some stuff you're going to see in the Swift language that's going to be different. And we're going to see that today even when we start doing it, right? But we're not going to do a full, 3 or 4 week Swifting. You're going to see Swift throughout. So by just by doing it, you're going to learn Swift. But remember, even though it's based in this new Swift language by Apple, right? And they're looking at they've open sourced it now, right? There still isn't any other environment you can use Swift. Like you can't use Swift on a PC yet, right? So until they get there, so you can use PC on a Mac, on a Linux machine or a PC machine. Really, you're limited to Mac and OS X and iOS apps. So until it gets there, really Swift is just for Mac. So then we're going to get into this application, and this is why the book is so good that I like this book. You build 2 apps in this book. As example apps. So you don't build like 4 apps. Like if you were going to use a Deedle and Deedle book, there's another book out there, Swift How to Program or iOS How to Program from Deedle and Deedle. And I was looking at that book as well. I don't recommend that book because you build like an app every single time, which is, it's impossible. Like you just can't learn anything from that. Here what they do is they build like 2 apps, right? So the first app we're going to work on for like 4 weeks is this app called World Trotter, where you actually do a couple things. It's a very simple UI in the front. And then finally, they put a little bit of, they actually add additional views, and you continue to grow the app, right, over a course of 4 weeks, which is cool. It's kind of cool. So that's the first part. And then the second half, right, we have this other app called, it's almost like a homeowner app. It's called, that's what it's called. And they'll explain that, why it is in the book. But then that's the app that we're going to be used for the rest of the semesters. There's like 2 apps that you kind of build. But you keep on adding technologies to the app 1 step at a time, right? So you kind of build on the foundation of what you've done before, which is kind of a cool, I like that way, as opposed to always building like, 4 or 5 apps that have nothing to do with each other, and then we expect you somehow to put together, a final project. That doesn't make any sense to me. The one cool thing is by the end, you should be able to do things like deploy to a device, and even on the last day, like on week 13, we're actually looking at sensors like the camera, right? So you can actually use the camera on your phone or the camera on the iPod or iPad, to link that into your app. So that's pretty cool. So again, if you notice, the second app is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks that we're continuously working on this app to build it, right? We're modifying that app, which will give you a great idea of how to build your own. One of the things they talk about in the book is mimicry is a great way to learn, right? They talk about how if you mimic what we're doing, so here's an app, just do this. Don't worry about why in the beginning, right? You may not understand all the reasons why. Just do it, right? But then so you have a workflow, right? And then afterwards, what you can do is use that mimicry, that pattern, the workflow pattern, to develop your own stuff. So that's really it in a nutshell. One thing that they don't do in this book is they don't try and sell you an iOS and Apple products. Like if you read the Deedle and Deedle book, they'll give you a whole history of iOS and Apple and stuff like this. And if you're building iOS apps or stuff for Mac, they assume that you want to, right? Now, most of you may not. And I'll tell you right now, there's been cases where, like I said, the last time I ran this course, they were like, I never want to run an iOS. I never want to build an iOS app in my life. You can't pay me enough to do. Like that's what came out of it. Like some really negativity. But the reason for that was because we had some real software issues on our machines from at one point. Also, Swift was in its infancy. Right now, we're at Swift 2, right? So that should help you out. That's the second piece. And it really depends. I mean, if you want to make the biggest market right now for apps is iOS. Android, sure, it's out there. The Google Play is huge, but the money is in iOS. That's where the money is. So if you want to do that, that's what we're teaching this course as well. Is to learn that other language and potentially have a job somewhere as an iOS developer. There's more jobs, to be honest with you, as an iOS developer than an Android developer, because anyone can be an Android developer. It's $25 to sign up, and it's Java, right? But an iOS developer, it takes a little bit more time. And I should mention one other thing. What about the people that say, well, should I do things native? There's this whole argument. There's two camps, right? I should do native app development, or I want to do app development with web kind of technologies and convert, kind of have a wrapper around my web technologies, right? Well, certainly if I was going to create a game, and one of the things I do at the other colleges is I do game development, right? And you guys have seen that. We did a little bit of game development in COMP3025 when I had you for COMP3025. Right? Now that's moved into more of a mean stack course. But I don't think I would develop natively on iOS for a game. I'd probably use something like Unity or Unreal. I'll tell you right now. And the reason for that is because it's a full game engine. So if I was going to go there, I don't know if I would develop straight with iOS and SpriteKit or GameKit, whatever they have in here. Because at the end of the day, even though you'll be using those technologies like Metal and all that stuff, it doesn't behoove you to do it. There's no, it's not mature enough for you to make a crazy three-dimensional game, one of those kind of things with iOS. And a lot of the games that are out for in the App Store are made with Unity or some other kind of technology. So that's one thing. But when it comes to native, you gotta have to think to yourself, if it's a performant thing, right? Performance, you probably want to go native, right? And if I was going to market, like if Rich and I were building a new app, let's say we had a client that wanted an app, right? Would I build it with iOS or Android? Probably not. I probably would start off with web technologies, right? Prototype it first, see if it works, if it takes, and if true, then move into developing on both sides, right? So that's the approach that I would probably take. I can't do that with you guys here, right? It's impossible for me to do web technologies and then somehow near the end of the course teach you about Swift and iOS. It doesn't make any sense. And you guys should know web technologies by now. So really, there are some really cool things that I can refer you to because this is a mobile, pervasive, and computing course kind of thing, right? It's not just about iOS. So one thing I wanted to mention at the beginning of the course is that there's other options. And one of the other options that I would recommend is something like, if you were going to build your own apps, is Ionic, right? If you're someone who's, the Ionic framework is kind of a hot framework right now because it uses Node.js as well as Angular. So if you're an Angular Node.js kind of person, Ionic is for you, right? It also uses Cordova and something like a PhoneGap on the back end, right? So that's really cool. So you kind of write once, deploy everywhere. That's the idea behind it, and I think that's a smart way to go if you're going to be writing prototypes, right? But there's going to come a point where you need performance, and when you do, sometimes we have to kind of move away from this again for other things, and then it doesn't make any sense, to write it in web technologies. Not yet, right? I would have loved, I'll tell you, from my opinion, I would have loved if Apple came out instead of the Swift language, if they said we're going to start using JavaScript, right? And we're going to use that as our main language, right? But they didn't. They wanted to, and one of the things is they always make these kind of barriers to entry for a lot of us, right? It's $99 to sign up with the App Store if you want to be an app developer with iOS. It's $25 with Android. It's $99 for each of their technologies. So if you want to develop on iPhones or iPads, $99, right? If you want to do stuff for the Mac, another $99. Watch OS, $99, and tvOS, another $99, right? So it's like they really milk you for that kind of stuff, and they also take 35% of your profits when you make an app too, right? That's what it comes down to, around 35%. And they also have a very stringent way of delivering or kind of putting your app in the App Store. There's all kinds of stuff they put there. They take around the same, but it's only $25 barrier to entry, right? And also you're using Java, and it's also open source technologies. You can do Android anywhere, right? So you don't have to do it on a PC. You can do it on Linux. You can do it on Mac. iOS, you can only do it on a Mac. Now there are some other technologies like Xamarin with an X, right? That's another option. So if you're a C# developer, Xamarin would be the other way to go. So I should probably mention this as well.
And these all deploy to iOS?
I emailed Xamarin asking about getting like a student thing, and they never replied to me.
And that's why we didn't do Xamarin this semester, because I did the same thing.
They didn't reply to you.
No. So to me, I'll tell you right now, not that I think Xamarin's bad, but when we were setting it up and I was working with IT to get this deployed, Xamarin's footprint was about 60 gig, right? That's huge to me, right? And then you still need to have access to a Mac anyway, right? Because you have to have, you can deploy on Android. So if you do Xamarin, you can use web technologies to deploy, or C# actually is what it is. So if you're a C# developer, Xamarin's for you if you want to deploy on Android, right? So you write C# once, and then you can deploy on iOS and Android. I like that idea because I love C#. I think C# is great, right? But I just didn't get the right support from them this semester. I don't know if it'll be in future semesters if I would go a different direction, right, for this one. But again, if I was going to write a prototype, like I said, and I recommend this for you, right? Imagine I have to learn a whole other language, Swift, and then I got to write my app here, and then I got to do the exact same thing on Android separately. Like you're doing it twice. Why, right? So that's why there's so much this middleware, if you will. These companies that come up with this way of writing it in whatever language you want. You write once, deploy everywhere. For a prototype, is probably the right way to go. Okay, so that's that. I got to mention that because it would be a disservice to you guys to do that. One other technology, which is a little older, but it's also out there, Accelerator Titanium. So if you were going to do Accelerator, that's out there as well. Those are the big ones. And what Accelerator does is very similar to the other ones, right? They kind of build once and deploy everywhere with on all platforms. It's not just iOS and Android, but they also do things on BlackBerry, on other. If you wanted to do BlackBerry or Windows Phone, for God's sake. What?
Huge markets.
Oh yeah, crazy. Although I still believe Windows is going to come up with some kind of competing thing very soon. I really do. Like with Windows 10 and the whole Surface that they've come up with, that whole ecosystem. I think you're going to see growth there. If I was going to predict anything. But that's really it in a nutshell. I think there's some other options is what I'm saying. So the question I always get every time I do something like this, and I've done a course similar to this at the other college that I work at, is, so Tom, do I have to program in, if I make an app, are you going to restrict me to learn Swift and iOS? And the answer is yes. So please, even though these technologies are out there to do a cross-platform app, I still want to see you learn Swift and iOS because it's the hardest thing to do. Right? Wouldn't you rather learn the hard stuff and then you know how to do Swift, you know how to do mobile technologies. If you wanted to pick up one of these things like Xamarin or Ionic or whatever, you could probably pick it up and you could probably learn it if you know mobile. Not so with Swift. Swift takes an investment of time and energy, and iOS does, and that's why we're doing it this way, and that's why I kind of went in that direction this semester. Questions around our schedule, which is up here. Your outline is also up online as well in Blackboard. I just wanted to kind of talk about this a little bit ahead of time. And you can see that, like I said, if you actually look at the book, you can see that each of these topics are right from the book, so chapter by chapter. So if you had to compare what we're looking at and look at the book, and if you wanted to read ahead, certainly you can look up here and follow along or read ahead. Any questions at all? Concerns? How about concerns? I know some people have concerns about the Mac. All right. Anyone? How many people do have iOS devices? Just hands. I want to just see. So you have something. All right, I know iPhones, but you have an old Mac. You said that you don't use anymore, right? You might don't try. If it's an old Mac and it doesn't do Xcode 7, don't bother, right? It'll be too slow, right? Honestly, yeah. So I mean, not that I'm an iOS fanatic, but I'll tell you one thing that I've learned as I wrap up this video is this: because I have a Mac, I can do iOS. If I had a PC, I couldn't. There's no way I could do iOS properly, even if I did a Hackintosh. And I've done that before. I've tried to do a Hackintosh and make my own Mac or whatever on my PC in a separate drive and all that kind of stuff. The problem with that approach is that you have to do updates. And every time you do an update that comes down from Apple, then you're out. Xcode is the latest version. They come up with another release of iOS, and somehow now you've got to redo your whole Hackintosh. No. I got no time for that, right? So that's one. And the other thing is I found was with web development, and we were just talking about this earlier with Rich. When I do web development, I'll tell you right now, when it comes to stuff for the Mac, it's 2 seconds. PC, I gotta go into environment variables and change this and that. There's so many little updates. So I found just using the Mac, even if I virtualize a PC, it's easier for me to do that way as opposed to the other way. If I virtualize a Mac, I got slow performance. It's a pain in the ass to set up. It's really hard, right? And so in that way, Mac has won for me. I've kind of slipped over into the Mac side because it's easier for me to do development, to do my job, right? Not because, I'm an Apple lover or whatever. And once you slip into that way, then you sit there, well, I got a phone. Should I get an Android phone or should I get an Apple phone? Well, I got a Mac, right? And then if you get a Mac, then should I get an Apple TV or should I get some kind of Google Play device, right? Well, I might as well get an Apple TV because then I can do stuff like, use AirPlay, right? And AirPlay is really, really cool, right? Where you can project your phone and your iTunes and all that stuff on different devices. So if you have an Apple TV, all of a sudden you've got a big screen, right? You can actually project your computer out there too, right? So yeah, it's kind of converted me over time, but not because I'm an Apple lover. Tomorrow it's going to be another platform to me.
Because they sucked you in.
They sucked me in, yeah. So maybe 10 years from now, I don't know, or 5 years from now, there'll be something else that's hot. Like, the Surface, I'll be honest with you, I'm really attracted to the Surface Pro, right? I really like the idea of the Surface, right? I don't know if I can make the jump to that right now. And if things turned, if there was more applications being built for Windows, then yeah, maybe that's where I would go, that direction, right? But so I'm trying to be as platform agnostic as I can be. And I'm going to ask you here, and again, one more time, have patience, all right? Because things aren't going to work like the book says they're going to work, right? And certain things, we're using a virtual machine, so you're kicking off Xcode, and then it's going to be a little bit slow. Please have patience with it. It's not going to work as perfect as it would normally work if you had your own Mac, okay? So I'm telling you this in advance. I don't want you to feel like, oh yeah, guys, it's going to just go perfect. IT's work with me, and we're good, right? Look, we just already found some problems with Text Wrangler or whatever, right? So, it's going to happen. Any questions around that before I end? Okay, let's end this video and then let's get to it.